Well, I seem to have a problem with uploading the PowerPoint inside our class, so might as well have this short video or something that would help us review such things. Now, the topic is about preschool, the age range of 3 to 5 years old. Now, before going to some details of the preschool, would like to see the different perspectives of the developmental aspects of it, from Freud to Piaget and so on and so forth. So let's take a journey, if that's the case. Now let's Freud. Um, Freud refers this as the phallic stage, 3 to 6 years old. Sorry, let me just get my stuff. 3 to 6 years old, and what's in it is it's about the sensitivity now becomes concentrated in the genitals, and the masturbation in both sexes becomes a new source of pleasure. Now, mostly people are debating about does this really happen towards women when they're at those types of age? I guess this in this aspect, I guess it would matter culturally if it's applicable or not, but these are supposedly the age ranges where male and female seems to focus on uh, their genitals, basically. The child becomes aware of anatomical sex differences, which sets in motion the conflict between erotic attraction, resentment, rivalry, jealousy, and fear, which Freud often calls it the Oedipus complex in boys and Electra complex for women, for girls. Now, this is resolved through the process of identification, which involves the child adopting the characteristics of the same sex parent. Way to go, Freud. Now let's talk about the Oedipus complex. What's the crucial part of it? Now, the most important aspect of the phallic stage is the Oedipus complex. This is one of Freud's most controversial ideas and one that many people reject outright. Now, the name of the Oedipus complex derives from the Greek myth where Oedipus, a young man, kills his father and marries his mother. Upon discovering this, he pokes his eyes out and became blind. This Oedipal is generic or general in terms of both Oedipus and Electra complexes. In the young boy, the Oedipus complex, or more correctly, conflict arises because the boy develops sexual pleasurable desires for his mother. He wants to possess his mother exclusively and get rid of his father to enable him to do so. Irrationally, the boy thinks that if this father were to find out about all this, his father would take away what he loves most. During the phallic stage, that would be what? The penis. Hence, the boy develops castration anxiety. Let me put my face here on top so that it's gonna be a little bit funny. I got my crown. Okay. Now, identification means internally adopting the values, attitudes, and behaviors of another person. The consequence of this is that the boy takes on the male gender role. It adopts the ego ideal and values that becomes superego. Freud in 1909 offered the Little Hans case study as the evidence of Oedipus complex. Now, moving on, we have Electra complex. So, when's Daddy going home? That's usually there, the poster. So let me put my face there. Now, for girls, Oedipus or Electra complex is less than satisfactory. The girl desires the father but realizes she does not have a penis. This leads to the development of penis envy and the wish to be a boy. The girl resolves this by repressing her desire for her father and substituting the wish for a penis with the wish, well, substituting the wish for penis with the wish for a baby. The girl blames his mother for her castrated state, and this creates a great tension. The girl then represses her feelings to remove the tension and identifies the mother to take on the female gender role. So it's sort of weird at some point, but this is how Freud perceives on that specific age range or stage. Now let's go to Piaget's view. Let me move over here so that you can see the picture of Piaget. Now, this is what Piaget called the pre-operational stage of cognitive development, where the pre-operational stage is the second stage of Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Now, during this period, children are thinking about symbolic level. They're not using cognitive operations. The child's thinking is during the stage is pre or before the operations. Inside it, you have centration, egocentrism, play, symbolic representation, pretend or symbolic play, animism, artificialism, and irreversibility. Now, some of them might start from 2 and ends up around 6 or further, but these are the estimates on what's going to happen within the lens of Piaget's developmental stage. So let's try to move around. Okay. So this time we're going to talk about the initiative versus guilt. Now, what's inside the initiative versus guilt? Initiative versus guilt is a stage of Erikson. Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. It occurs between ages of 3 and 5 years old, which refer to Erikson as the play age. At this stage, children spend a good amount of time at play with other kids and begin to develop their interpersonal skills. While playing, the children begin to take initiative and may attempt to feel out the leadership roles. One becomes the leader. And actions amongst peers. For example, a child may choose the role for themselves or others within the game. This is the beginning of initiative. The guilt comes into play when children make mistakes. While navigating through these positions, learning the subtleties of getting others to cooperate without being too bossy is a trial and error. Because, in the playhouse, you might end up the very bossy one and, create some scenes. Now, this is a trial. Remember, these are just trial and errors for the kids' perspective. Now, guilt or shame is in the situation can lead to a child caring for others' feelings or choosing what to do, what others consider, right? But it can also cause the child to avoid trying to initiate games or lead others. So, from this experiences that they have, they tend to try and use a method of trial and error. If it works for them, then they feel great about it. If it doesn't, it also puts them behind or puts a setback, sort of. Now, stage 3 of psychosocial crisis of initiative versus guilt is a stage that can have a profound impact on the rest of your life. So, what's happening on the stage is it's basically progress. It goes through such routes or goes through specific. It's already a stage, but it's sort of a progress going on. It's a work in progress for sure. Now, moving on, since we're just gonna be brief. Okay, I'll put this here. Anyway, from this one, Erikson called the age 3 to 5 play ages. It's a time where in life when children get the chance to take initiative through play, and children of the play ages are usually in preschool. Yeah, for at least a part of every weekday. If not, they can still move through the stage successfully if they have opportunities to play with other children often, like neighbors and um, yeah, mostly neighbors, relatives, and so on and so forth. They begin developing interpersonal skills because they know now old enough to play with other children. So the question here is, how do they usually develop? How do they take initiative, rather? Now, children of this play age are naturally drawn to experiences that allow them to make decisions and lead other children as they play. They may choose the game to engage with others. They may choose the rules and even roles of others when they're playing make believe. So the roles. I usually remember when uh, playing X-Men, Power Ranger. I choose the blue, you choose the green, stuff like that. And so on go on in their fantasies and they make believe. So it's really interesting looking through their lens. During the stage, you might notice your child planning activities with their playmates. You may see that they make up their games. They may be one, suggest in a group to place all. They're not only practicing initiative, but they're also developing their leadership skills too. So it goes through that to their imagination of playing, like I said, like I mentioned before, like through X-Men, Power Ranger, and so on and so forth. So it's not only the roles that they play, but they're also creating a scenario, a storyline, which is very interesting if you try to really listen through it. So now, how do they develop guilt? Now, children in Erikson stage 3 can often seem aggressive. They simply haven't worked out the subtleties of getting others to cooperate without being bossy. So they don't have the maturity, basically. Always choose the appropriate games and rules for themselves and others. In short, they're going to make a lot of mistakes. Now, interacting with other children gives the child opportunities to develop sense of initiative. Yes, as we said that earlier. However, guilt can lead to healthy outcomes, like caring for others' feelings and choosing to do what considers right. It can also cause the child to avoid trying and start new games to lead others. So it's still a trial and error thing that goes around this stage, especially in socializing. Innately, you can see your kid very sociable or trying to initiate the social, being sociable towards other kids the same age or even younger or even older. So they have that kind of capacity. It's just the matter of their experiences, whether they go through uh, a different or some kind of experience that would set them back. But still, it's still part of the process. So why is it? Oh yeah. So why is it essential to be balanced? Well, it's essential to be balanced because initiative without guilt can be harmful to others, and guilt without shame, without initiative, can cause the child to withdraw from others. A parent must try to subtly help their child find a proper balance between the two. So a parent must be mindful and delicate to avoid negative outcomes in taking over the child. Now, a child needs space to make decisions. Now, this is very important. The child needs to have that kind of opportunity uh, for them to commit mistakes or realize some things or do some errors for them to realize how to correct themselves. Um, the initiative, while also learning that they need to consider others' feelings. Now, furthermore, a child must learn how learn from their own mistakes at times, and sometimes parents' job is just to simply point out, you made mistakes here. What do you think happened and stuff like that. So parents don't really dictate such. Just point out and guide their child. Now make sure mistakes are corrected and are not considered as bad. At this stage, children often take guilt and shame for things that you never intended for them to carry. The child may feel guilty for bothering you if you dismiss their question, yet, as any parent will know, the child does not need to feel some form of guilt. A child interrupting you ask questions deserve a certain level of shame in order to realize their action had a negative social effect. And that's, when kids interrupt you in the middle of something, you just politely say and just point out things. Now, this is what happened, or negative outcomes in initiative versus guilt. What happens if initiative versus guilt goes wrong? The child Maybe I'll stay here. The child may be out of balance in one way or another. They may become guilt-ridden, socially isolated, and emotionally fragile. Or they may become pushy or even aggressive. They may doubt their ability to take some actions and get positive outcomes, or may selfishly disregard feelings of other people. Too guilt-ridden child may never develop their creativity fully. A child who has too little guilt, on the other hand, may behave inappropriately. The child may think like, oh, he's doing a good job. Erikson critiques and points out that he never clearly described what happens years after an individual fails to pass through the stage successfully. The generally accepted answer is that a failed stage leads to related problems throughout life. Of course, this is the development of socialization towards child and towards interacting with other children. So it's already a practice there when they're growing up, looking at the right or wrong without any guidance there. One would, get lost sometimes and would not know until they grow up what they were doing is wrong or right. So what happens when children at 3? So what happens when children succeed in stage 3? When a child moves successfully through the stage of initiative and guilt, they develop a strong sense of purpose. The exact purpose usually changes as they get older, yet the core feeling that they can take meaningful actions and get positive results can last throughout the rest of their lives. So whether you're a parent or never intended to be one, you need to have that positive balance or initiative and guilt. If you didn't learn how to do that balancing act like a child, you might have to work harder to achieve it now, yet it's far from impossible. As Erikson indicated in his theory, we continue to change throughout our lives. There's always a reason of hope to work towards personal development. As an adult, you may still be remembering the ways you were thwarted as a child. You may tell yourself you can't succeed in influencing others. You might tell yourself your opinions and questions don't really matter. You might feel such guilt at the thought of hurting someone and inadvertently, and you don't even try to initiate social interactions anymore from that kind of experience. So it's for Erikson, it's always a work in progress, even towards the adulthood that one is trying to develop. Now this is Kohlberg's moral development. What's inside here is preschool, age 3 to 5, where child internalizes family values. Preschoolers begin to develop their own ideas and of right and wrong, and they're better able to follow rules, while preschool children may be motivated to behave ethically or morally to avoid punishment. So the motivation here is just to avoid being punished or be praised. They have also an increasing understanding of feelings and rights of other people. So now they're becoming less of egocentric and try to understand others and others' feelings. Now, though children at this stage need to be reminded of the rules and need guidance following them, they also begin to develop a strong sense of fairness and acceptable behavior. Parents can help children develop moral code by discussing ethical dilemmas and talking about feelings. Setting clear boundaries and expectations and consequences for moral behavior can help preschoolers clarify their values. Now, what's inside here is such skills as naming colors, showing affection, and hopping on one foot, called developmental milestones. So we're now going to check the developmental milestones. These are the things that most children can do by a certain age. Children reach milestones in how they play, learn, speak, behave, and move, like crawling, walking, or jumping. As children goes into early childhood, their world will begin to open up. Now they will become more independent and begin to focus more on adults and children outside the family. They will want to explore and ask things around them even more. Their interactions with family and those people around them help them shape, okay, their personality and their own ways of thinking and moving. During this stage, children should be able to ride a tricycle, use safety scissors, notice difference between girls, boys, and help dress and undress, play, and so on and so forth. Now, this emphasizes on the environment, the kind of environment that would help instill the values of the child. So as they grow through this stages, that on this stage, the values is very important through family. That would be primary. And this time it goes beyond the family, but also includes the people around them, the environment itself. So it's very crucial for them at this stage. Now focusing on cognitive focusing on the cognitive aspect, social, emotional, language, and physical. So at this stage, children can understand the sequence. Alright, so let me put it there. Okay, now at this stage, children can understand the sequence of daily events. They wake up, eat breakfast, and so on and so forth. So they can also understand the concept of half and realistic play. They can listen to age-appropriate stories for about like 10 minutes. They can now relate and say relevant comments about home, family, and familiar events. Now this is very also important for parents to be mindful of what they're teaching or commenting, or some topics on the table that one's saying, and the arguments and stuff, because these are the stages where the kids sort of like, you may not notice, but more of listening to it and even comment on things. So they're more observant at this point. So it's pretty much crucial for parents to be mindful. Inside it, they can recognize missing parts while looking. Pennies, coins, saving monies, pennies. I know. Sorting, classifying patterns from biggest to smallest, colors and shape, things that float. Why? Yeah, at this stage, there'll be questions why, and the frequently asked question why. At this stage, preschool is the one question where the whys are thrown at you most of the time. Like, why is the earth round? But why? And why, and so on and so forth. So they need to tend to they're so hungry of explanation that they've wanted to hear. So for parents, what happens there is what to expect rather on these stages. Read stories, daily routines, appropriate questions of who, what, where, and why. For the educators, the active participation is very, very crucial. Daily routines to be set, the story time and activity learning recipes. So let's go to social emotional. So inside the social emotional, children of or emotional well-being during these early years is a powerful effect on social relationships. Children who are emotionally healthier are better able to establish maintain positive relationships with other adults and peers. Consider your own children or others to know the different stages of their social emotional development as they were growing up. Preschoolers are learning to talk about their feelings and the feelings of others. Social emotional development, however, involves more than just expressing emotions. It entails taking turns, becoming independent and following routines, interacting more with peers, um, engaging meaningful relationship with others, controlling emotions, and developing positive self-image. Now, there's a lot to take in since their age range, in a short span of time, a lot to take in. So we're talking about like 3 to 6 range here. So there's a lot to put in the holes, or there's a lot of years to fill in. And within this short span of times, there's a lot of learning that the kid can absorb or even develop. Now, these skills are crucial for children's success, participation in school, and home experiences. And for overall growth, these skills build children's social emotional abilities that influence their success in school and in life. Now, at this stage, age 3, they usually copy adults and friends, show affection to their friends without prompting, takes turns in games, shows concern for a crying friend, dresses and undresses, understands the idea of mine, his, and hers, shows a wide range of emotions, separates easily from family members, and may get upset with major changes in their routine. So you can see there on the HD, there's a beginning of growth of independence and awareness towards not only within self but also from the outside world. At the age 4, they enjoy doing new things, more and more creative with make-believe play, rather play with other children than alone, cooperates with other children, plays mom and dad, often can tell what's real and what's make-believe, talks about what he or she is like. So they have their own preference now. They have their own specific characters to play. And at the age 5, wants to please friends, wants to be like friends, more likely to agree with rules like sing, dance, enact, and aware of gender, and can tell what's real and what's make-believe, shows more independence, sometimes demanding and sometimes cooperative. Here's a short slide. I hope it plays. I guess. Oh yeah.
Participate in experiences that help them learn new skills or practice existing ones in supportive and nurturing environments. Watch this video to learn about the range of social emotional skills that are important for preschoolers, as well as the reasons why these skills are important.
So there are a number of social skills and emotional competencies that we think are important for preschool age children to learn, both because they're skills that help them be ready for school, that help them do better when they get into school. They're skills that help children engage in appropriate behaviors rather than inappropriate behaviors. And those skills range from teaching children friendship skills, how to initiate play with their friends, how to respond to initiations, how to ask their friends to play. So friendship skills, sharing, taking turns, emotional literacy, being able to label and communicate their emotions in an appropriate way. So when they're mad, they can talk about being mad, or when they're sad, they can talk about being sad. We think it's important for preschool children to learn good social problem solving skills. So when they have a social problem, like a child has a toy they want, or two children aren't including them in play, that they have solutions to those kinds of problems, and they can use appropriate solutions, such as getting a teacher, or trading toys, or taking turns to solve the social problem instead of engaging in some problem behavior. We think another important skill for preschool children is around anger management, or really managing intense emotions. So having strategies to use to calm down when they're mad, or having strategies to use to calm down when they're sad or angry.
And we're back. I hope this gets heard, I guess, in the next few slides. Anyway, making friends, they understand taking turns, sulks, and being left out. Close relationships, 1 to 2. These are the times where you get to ask, who's your best friend? Who's your best bud? And stuff like that. So they play with others and group mates and stuff, calling, taunting, and tell jokes. Now inside this, as preschooler engage, they pretend play with friends, use words, sentences to express their feelings and thoughts. Even though they may still need adult support, okay. To share toys and materials with friends, they improve their own as time passes by. Preschoolers also improve their ability to understand appropriately respond to their friends' feelings. Children with healthy social emotional development may be balance of all these components. Now, next one would be self-awareness. Preschoolers improve their ability to control their bodies during different activities. Throughout the day, like sitting down, circling time, playing time in the gym, take turns to have conversations with peers, acknowledge their own names and names of others. They self-evaluate and know whether they made appropriate or inappropriate choices. Many children learn. Yep. That looks like a good idea. Anyway, many children learn to identify, discuss emotions through interactions and conversations with responsive adults in the context of positive relationships to support and a supportive environment. Preschoolers display a variety of emotions in different ways. For example, they may say, I'm upset. They match with facial expression to happy, mad, sad, and even may laugh when they're excited. At the same time, they improve their ability to manage their emotions, to match the situation, environment, and control their emotions. They are separately easily from family members. Although preschoolers are better than toddlers at regulating emotions, they still need a great deal of help and practice to develop these appropriate behaviors. Now, independence. They may start identifying favorite friend, like I said earlier, best friends, BFF, wingman, buddy. Ask their friend to play independently, play with toys and materials, and complete many self-care tasks, such as getting dressed, taking a bath perhaps, going to the bathroom, eating snacks, feeding themselves, getting ready for bed. Independent preschools will try to tell caregivers about their daily routines, or what do you call that, how they went, and they tend to use new vocabulary. Now, emotional literacy helps children solve problems and regulate their emotions and skills that are essential to success in preschool and beyond. Children who label, talk about, are aware of their emotions are more likely to focus on, engage um, in daily routines and activities. They're less likely to become easily frustrated also and have excessive tantrums and act impulsively. So it's not really perfect, but rather they tend to gauge things through it. Now remember that expectations about developmental milestones are driven by cultural values also and preferences. For example, some cultures children are not expected to feed themselves independently until they're like around 3 or 4 years old. In other cultures, children are expected to start eating independently in early infancy and toddlerhood. In daily interactions with children and their families, you should remind yourself that culture and family priorities influence the children's social and emotional competence. So it's the influence there is much more internally within the family and and the values and the culture that the family is following. So values there has a great influence, and especially the culture. So that's supposed to be one point there that to be looked at, or you know, um, mindful of that. There's another clip, and I hope it plays. Just a short one.
Into their learning. This video will highlight social and emotional development in preschool by introducing 4 aspects of social emotional growth in young children: relationships with others, self-awareness, emotional regulation, and independence. Relationships are the foundation of social and emotional health. These relationships are nurtured within supportive environments in which children feel welcomed, loved, and accepted. Building a sense of community can greatly impact relationship building and growth in your classroom and program. Reach out to families of children and invite them to be a part of your classroom and school community. Children become more self-aware as they learn to identify and label their own emotions. As preschoolers become more self-aware, they improve their ability to control their bodies during different activities throughout the day and engage in appropriate behaviors with their friends. In your work in preschool, be sure to model and support healthy expression and play by providing children with opportunities to meaningfully engage with others during experiences and activities. Throughout the day, preschool children display a variety of emotions in different ways. Whether they're using verbal communication or facial cues, they are constantly improving their ability to manage and control their emotions. With purposeful experiences and adult support, children learn to better manage these feelings and build the previously mentioned relationships through improved communication and conflict resolution. Developing healthy independence allows preschoolers to follow daily routines and activities, communicate with friends and teachers, and complete self-care tasks. As children's emotional literacy grows, they become more confident in exploring their environments. In your daily work in preschool, make sure you provide children with opportunities to practice a variety of skills and to become independent. Social emotional development is crucial to children's ability to learn, and this plays a significant role in determining their school readiness and later success in school and life. Keep in mind that each child is unique and that social emotional development varies across children. Your goal is to help all children learn and grow to their potential.
Now going back, I hope you guys heard the whole video. Now going back, now at this stage, 1,000 to 1,500 words, adjectives, and verbs, and including past tense, are used to communicate. Now language is used now to communicate as means of expression or communicating with others, maybe children or an adult or same age. So their vocabulary, they're now using. Yeah, I know. The vocabulary at 3 years old: pronouns, prepositions, 3-word sentence, plural, and 4-year-old understands relationship. 3-step command, counts 1 to 4, stuff. And a 5-year-old shows early understanding of time concepts. Counts to 10, responds to why questions. Now, at this stage, stuttering may occur at the normal age of development of toddlers from 3 to 4 years old. It occurs because the ideas come to mind faster than the child is able to express them, especially if the child is stressed out or excited, basically. When the child is speaking, give your full prompt attention to not comment on stuttering. Consider having the child evaluated by a speech pathologist if this goes on and progresses to severe. If there are signs of stuttering such as tics, grimacing, and other self-consciousness, stuttering lasts longer than 6 months. If it goes beyond, then you should have it checked. Speech, baby mannerisms are gone. Woo! Clear, audible, adult speech. Social language, exchange comments of ideas, more complex body language, speaking to peers. Now this is the combination there of, oh look at that kid. Anyway, combining gestures or arms cross, face is grumpy, is equal to unread. So they get to have they get to see the relationship now of the facial expression, the non-verbal language to the language itself. Now, if parents and teachers will know what to expect from these stages, it will help them, guide them to know what to do and to expect from it, rather. Communicate ideas with needs and wants, adult talk, better vocabulary, less stress, clear speech, and so on with the parents, and on this side, and on the other side for the teacher. It's supposed to be, for physically, they're supposed to gain about 4 to 5 pounds, 1.8 to 2.25 kilograms per year. Grows about 2 to 3 inches, 5 to 7.5 centimeters per year. Has 20 primary teeth by the age of 3, and has 20/20 vision by the age of 3, and 20/20 vision by the age of 4, rather. Sleeps 11 to 13 hours at night, most often without the daytime nap. Pedaling tricycle for about 3 years, becoming able to steer well at around 4, and doing heel to toe walk at the age builds blocks. This is for the fine motor skills. They can build blocks starting from 9 more blocks, dresses and undresses, uses scissors, brushes teeth, and drawing a circle, and drawing a person with 3 parts. That's for the fine motor. For the 4 years old, drawing square, using scissors, cutting straight line, putting clothes properly, managing a spoon or fork neatly while eating. And at the 5, drawing, spreading with a knife, drawing with a triangle. So these are the significant ones. They can, in playing, they may learn swim, pedals a bike, throws, and catches a ball. Now, if parents and teachers, parents would expect these, what do you call that? These kinds of activities. They have become less supervised, and then they're, for the teacher education, they get to be keen on refining the gross motor, fine motor, and some other challenging activities for them to engage and sort of like stimulate and to have it, stimulate more of those movements. Now, it is common for a small group of preschoolers to see dominant child emerge and who tends to boss around, and other children without much resistance from them. So, this is now where the trial and error part of the kids come in, where it's either they become bossy or they become followers or resistant from bossy characters. But these are now the play. Although 4 to 5 years old may be able to start playing games, they have rules, and those rules are likely to change, often in a whim of a dominant child. As you can see, like there's always this kid in the playground is like the dominant one or the alpha male looking one. So other kids would tend to like follow him around, and she's the bigger one or the louder one. So that usually happens. If you try to observe the kids in the playground, you get to see who is that one or who's the character. Now, it is normal for preschools to test their physical, behavioral, emotional limits. Having a safe, structured environment in which to explore, face, new challenges is important. However, preschools need well-defined limits. So you have to set the boundaries and the rules in it. The child should display initiative and curiosity, the desire to explore and enjoy enjoyment without feeling guilty or inhibited. Early morality develops as children want to please their parents and other importance. This is what they usually call the good boy and good girl stage. Elaborating on storytelling may progress into lying. If this is not addressed during the preschool years, the behavior may continue into the adult years. Mouthing off, backtalks more often wake the preschooler get attention or reaction from an adult. So the backtalk and the mouthing is now evident there. It's for them to catch the attention of the adult. So this is expected. This should be if you expect this, then there's always like a remedy prior to it, or the tolerance of as a parent should be a little bit longer, wider perhaps. Now, individualistic versus collective cultures. So every culture has its own ideal. Smart, well-functioning child. The ideal is to ingrained in the culture that few questions its validity. In America, the ideal is highly verbal, independent, emotional controlled, and self-reliant child. These social skills are seen as essential to the success of individualistic society. Okay, if you have those essential kind of behavior or trait, or perhaps behavior or learned, I don't know if I should call it trait or behavior, but those are components of how to be successful in an individualistic culture. Most American parents believe their child has an inborn temperament, set of personality traits that can be molded by parenting and society. Babies are bundles of potential, and good permanent parent is one who can uncover the latent abilities of talents of their child, encourage the good while discouraging the bad. American parents are more concerned about self-esteem of their children. The word self-esteem can be easily translated into other language because the trait is not part of their value system in many cultures. Of course, American mothers are actually aware of the success in society depends on having good people skills. Being individualistic to a point of overt selfishness is problematic. Successful children achieve a balance between self-maximization and the consideration of others. On the other hand, on the collectivist culture, Let's go up. This strengthens the relationship that holds the fabric of collectivist society together. Reciprocity of responsibilities and favors between members of an in-group allows people to extend family to get things done. In other words, it allows them to negotiate cooperation. Instead of I, it gets said we. It's sort of a small unit within another unit. Families in collectivist culture actually train their children to be independent. Okay. The notion there, if you live in a collectivist culture, that you're not trained to be independent. Actually, they are trained to be independent. One has to learn to receive graciously, and a person has to feel responsible for his behavior and avoid at all costs shaming not only himself, okay, not only himself but also the family, tribe, or community. The worst thing that can happen to a person is to be left alone. Rejection in a group is terrible punishment for them. You compare this to the American icon of a cowboy, usually depicted as a loner by choice, the lone wolf. And he rides in a range, most faithful companion is horse, which is a model of self-sufficiency. Now I know where the lone wolf comes from, and the cowboy part. Individualism, sleeping, feeding, toilet training, autonomy, sorry. Now they usually spend considerable time sitting down in playpens with their toys. Many parents feel that the social time is stressful for babies and that infants need to have a downtime to rest and recover. Babies quickly learn that social interaction is spaced between times of solitude. So we're talking about the sleeping solidarity versus the co-sleeping. Though some American parents do sleep with their babies for pragmatic reasons like feeding, breastfeeding, comforting fretful babies, many express the concern that the co-sleeping fosters attachment and many more of their babies out the parental room as soon as possible. Usually by 6 months, they express, I want to put my face here, they express the need to guide the child down the path of independence, as well as desire to have our own privacy. Mothers in collectivist cultures rarely raise concerns about children having attachment, which is, some of them are true. It's just basically a cultural thing. So, where was I? Sorry about that. Anyway, many move their babies out of the parental room as soon as possible, usually by 6 months. Now, mothers in collectivist culture, they have this kind of concern that they move their kids, but because it fosters, it gives what do you call that, space, and it guides them to the path of independence. However, in many cultures, putting their infant to another room is considered unacceptable. Yeah, in third world countries or in Asian culture for sure. Due to the traditional practices or physical constraints that the infant shares with the bed with the mother or parents. In fact, for overwhelming majority of mothers, from these cultures believe co-sleeping is the best and the most natural place because the mother is more tuned to their baby's arousal during at night. And let's go to feeding. Parents from cultures oriented toward the independence, may spoon feed their children through toddlerhood and beyond. Spoon feeding supports interdependence as a teacher to your child, or a child to be patient and cooperative with the caregiver as the process of eating. It also models the correctedness via helping behaviors. The child being helped has learned to help others when it comes for him to do so. In some cultures, food is revered. It's never a plaything, especially to people who have survived severe famines. In other relevant examples of cultural influences on feeding practices include breastfeeding duration, acceptance of breastfeeding, in breastfeeding rather in public, timing of introducing complementary food. So it's still based on cultural thing like breastfeeding in public, or there's specific locations for breastfeeding. Like in Asian culture, you can't just show your tits around and breastfeed a kid in a public place. There are designated areas for you to do that. Culturally, it's different. It has a different meaning. And it's not to discourage breastfeeding, but rather it's to it has a different meaning. It's just about meanings, and it has a different perspective on different cultures. So not all the time that it's good in the US and will also be good in Asia. There are some things that are good in Asia may not be good in the US. So it really depends where your location, or where you're living, or your ethnicity, and your culturally, your cultural background. The move towards time control. Studies in culturally based infant feeding and sleeping practices consistently show that American mothers in the pediatric advise them to believe the importance of a baby toward consistent feeding. Sleeping schedule. So basically, in this part, it's more of the schedule timetable, which is, again, it differs on cultural. Although they follow a strict, there's always an aspect of the timetable that can be very useful or helpful, but some cultures have difficulty in maintaining time, or does not really look at the time like that. So schedules concerns parents because it appears to be a regression or setback, often results baby to be fuzzy. Now, easy babies are those to adjust or read the routines. Now, if babies have kind of specific routines, it's easy for the babies to adjust and such. Routine. It becomes automatic if that's the case. Toilet training. In America culture, toilet training is an important step in teaching or encouraging the child independently or take care of his or her own toilet needs. This caregiver's goal is to accomplish as quickly as painlessly as possible for one's learning process. Usually American parents do this at the minimum age of 2, where they sort of begin having training. Now, Mayo Clinic even recommends that you begin training your child until it begins to show interest, and it can help himself from up and down in toilet of his own. These are examples. Let him become so obvious, and how to approach to toilet training reflects individualism when it comes to compared with the norm of collectivist societies. Consider the following advice taken from a popular parenting website, babycenter.com, that the language used here to exemplify the experience of toilet training should be individualized. For the child in America, and the toddler is given a lot of leeway to make his own choices. Babies in non-Western cultures are held most constantly so that the caregiver can respond immediately to signals. When the baby needs to urinate or have a bowel movement, This reinforces a mutual dependence as the infant becomes accustomed to the caregiver's involvement in process. Now, this is pros and cons. In my perspective, in my perception, it has always have pros and cons and how to do these things. This is an example of traditionally. Should I be here? No. Traditionally in China, for example, this is a process called elimination training. Babies and toddlers are encouraged to use toilet on demand once the caregiver notices the signal it's time to go. Signals. Baby learns to go on demand when the caregiver is whistling, swishing noises. So this pants is usually worn in China. It's called kaidanku, and the diapers aren't used. They don't use diapers. Considerations about cultural variations in toilet training practices. This is just the example of how things are different in different cultures or countries. Does culture affect parenting styles? Yeah, very much. Cultural norms about parenting practice typically influence how children are raised. So it does give a very it gives a large factor. These norms affect beliefs and values of parents teach their children what behaviors to be considered as appropriate and the methods used to these values. Are you a doctor yet? Cultural values can influence communication, orientation, or degree of interaction between family members, as well as conformity orientation, as well as conformity within the family, the social rules and communication beliefs. All of it's really all in the family. Here's another clip, but it's I was expecting for this is by Russell Peters, just an excerpt on how things are different culturally. Please don't mind the language. It has rated PG. Striktong pagtubay ng mga magulang. So I guess I'm talking to mostly adults here. So here it is.
White people, please beat your kids. I'll tell you why else, because when I was growing up, right, I grew up around a lot of black people, which was fine, because the black people never picked on. White kids, not so friendly back then. But every now and then, a white kid would come and hang out with us, and we were like, wow, a white kid! I've heard so much about you! And here's where the problem is. When a white kid would hang out with us, we'd want to be like the white kid. We would want to start to do everything like the white kid. We wanted to copy that white kid so much. And the problem is when we would start taking that white kid's advice on how to deal with our parents. That'll get you friggin' murdered, man. I remember hanging around this one little white boy, Ryan, when I was 10 years old. I went to his house after school one day, right? His parents never beat him, and they never even yelled at him. He could do anything he wanted, and nothing was going to happen to him. But he was an angry kid. We walked into his house after school, and his mom goes, Ryan, go clean your room. Fuck you, bitch! His mom goes, what am I going to do with him? I go, Ryan, you can't talk to your mom like that. Yes, I can. She's a jackass. Don't say that, man. She'll hit you. No, she won't. She's not allowed to. What the hell are you talking about, man? My parents hit me. Yeah, well, next time they try it, you tell them to fuck off. Are you sure? me. It works for me. So I went home for the last time. I walked in the house. My dad goes, Russell, come and do the dishes. Fuck you, Dad. What the hell did you say to me? Do I look like Ryan's mom? Somebody gonna get hurt real bad. That was my dad's threat. Right before he beat me. Every single time. Oi, Russell. Somebody gonna get hurt real bad. I hated that threat. You know why?
So I guess we're moving on because the video stopped. Anyway, you can find them anywhere on YouTube. So it's just, it might be funny with it using his humor and all. So it's just that it's funny because it's true that there are differences culturally in it, and you know that's a good thing about humor because it's mostly true. The realities of it. So how to handle out of control kids. Many parents feel like their kids are out of control of one time or another, but usually that feeling is fairly fleeting. For some parents, however, out of control kids become the norm. Their children refuse to listen, break rules, and couldn't care less about the consequences. Well, I guess first rule one there is, believe it or not, kids are like rules and limits. Kids feel safe when they trust that their parents are good leaders who can set and enforce rules. If you struggle to get your kids to listen, these strategies can help. Now remember, now these things are at the end. I'll give you a note at the end. One would be, make the house rules clear. Reduce chaos by creating a clear written list of rules. Focus on basic rules like use kind words, ask before borrowing. Rules can be more easily enforced once they're written down and discussed in the family. Yeah, like not all in the refrigerator is free for all. So I guess those are one of the rules that you get to set in your house, rather. Get the family on a routine, introducing more structure into your child's day. So create time for homework, chores, dinner, family activities, and play. And try to stick with schedule as soon as possible on weekdays. This needs to be consistent. The child would have a difficulty if this isn't set, and these are also crucial and rules that are set inside the house, since most of the time half of the day or most of the day are spent inside the house. Assign chores. For 14, it's important to assign regular age appropriate chores to get your children used to pitching, and so they can help practice being responsible members of the family. And in my experience, I guess most of the children who don't have chores or don't have a specific responsibility growing up, in the end seems to have problems with themselves or having relationships. It's not just the relationship, but themselves having problems in their adulthood. Use positive language. Focus on what your kids can do rather than they can't. So instead of saying no TV until you're clearing your room tomorrow, you can say watch TV as soon as your room is clean. Offer positive choices that will give your child a little bit of control. Give effective instructions. The way you give direction matters. Be firm and direct and only give one instruction at a time. Use calm voice and make sure you have your child's attention before you speak. Now, I guess these provide consequences for misbehaviors, the negative reinforcement that one has. Timeout. These also have specific age range which they are effective usually. Loss of privileges, restitution, logical consequences. Basically, all of these things, all you need to tell your kids on these generation or the generation right now is just tell the kids, I'm going to turn off the Wi-Fi. And that's it. Turn off the Wi-Fi as consequences for misbehavior, and I'm pretty sure they get the high idea. You just need to explain it to them what goes on. Establish clear consequences for breaking rules. It's important to be consistent with the consequences. When your child or children know the rule violation, will result immediately consequence. They'll be less likely to misbehave. Carefully consider which of these consequences are more likely to be effective for each child. Okay. Nowadays, you can't tell your kids to, okay, stay in your room, don't see some friends and stuff. They're just gonna spend the whole day in the internet. So nowadays, it's different. You have to adapt and to be consistent also. Now, don't be discouraged if your child's behavior seems to get a little worse before it gets better. When you start giving consequences, an out-of-control child will push back. Once they see you're serious about following through with consequences, their behavior will likely calm down. They get to learn. They learn, basically. Give incentives. If your child isn't motivated by consequences, they may need some extra incentives to stay on track. Use positive reinforcements to motivate them to follow rules. Offer praise. Ray. Catch your child being good. Say things like, I appreciate your dish in the sink, or put your dish in the sink, or thank you for playing so quietly while I was on the phone. Positive attention can go a long way toward motivating skills to keep up their good work. It's not just the monetary or anything, prize or any of those. Even gestures are very crucial and important for kids. Keep in mind that there are many free and low-cost rewards will work as good motivators. One idea is to go to your local dollar store and load up some of your items for your child to choose from. So, simple things that you need to have as a reward for good behavior. It doesn't really need to be expensive. Imagine that, how it escalates and stuff. So, show them, establish the token economy system. Show your child that the privilege like playing video games or going to a park must be earned. Establish token economy that allows your child to cash in their tokens for privileges. If nothing happens, then this is the time where you seek professional help. Thank you, and I hope everything is understood and everything's recorded here in the video, so hope to get some feedback, and thank you for your time.